We're on, Mr. Bird. Thank you. And welcome, councillors and directors, and welcome to anybody who may be watching live to this, the ordinary meeting of the Alpine Shire Council on the 3rd of August 2021. I shall get the CEO to read the following statement, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All council meetings are filmed with both video and audio being recorded, and today we are online. So in common with all narrative during council meetings, verbal responses, congratulations, obituaries and question time will not be recorded in the written minutes. By submitting a question, you consent to your question being read aloud during public question time. The reasoning behind recording council meetings, of course, to hold us more accountable and improve the transparency of council's decision making to our community, and is also particularly useful when we're unable to meet in the gallery and the meeting has to be held online, as is the case with the current restrictions. The full meeting is being streamed live on Council's YouTube channel, which is Alpine Shire Council, and will also be available on the YouTube channel shortly after this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Bird. The Alpine Shire Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land we are now on, and we pay our respects to elders past and present. We also acknowledge those people who have contributed to the rich fabric of our community and strive to make wise decisions that will improve the quality of life for all. Item 3, confirmation of minutes. Before I go into this, I would just like to welcome a new councillor, actually an old councillor with a new name. Councillor Chalwell has decided to do the right thing and change her name to Councillor Hughes. So in advance, Councillor Hughes, if I do refer to you in the heat of the moment as Councillor Chalwell, I do apologise. However, from now on, Councillor Hughes, and for those out there in Zoom land, our names are all up there tonight so that you can see who is actually, we have a full complement of councillors. We have our Acting Director of Assets, Elaine Burridge. We have our Acting Director of Corporate Performance, Mr. Will Jeremy. Thank you. Confirmation of minutes. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Prime and Councillor Hughes. All those in favour? Thank you. It's carried. No apologies tonight. Thank you. Now, obituaries and congratulations, and I will call out as we go around. Councillor Prime. Thank you. Councillor Hughes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. A big shout out to all of those watching and cheering on the Australian athletes over at the Tokyo Olympics. I know that during our lockdown at home, it was a source of entertainment for my family, and so lots of questions asked by my young sons on how things are done, and it's been a really good educational pace for us. But we do have a former Myrtleford resident, Ben Buckingham, who actually ran his personal best in his heat for the steeplechase event. And he's now the 4th fastest Australian to date to do that particular event. So I think, you know, we do have some fantastic athletes in Australia, and it's really nice to see one close from home get up there and represent. So well done to everyone involved.
Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to congratulate a couple of organisations who've done a tremendous job in the last couple of weeks since the easing of the most recent lockdown. I know other councillors will probably want to make this congratulations as well, but yeah, particularly Alpine Health, the Alpine Shire Council, the Alpine Resorts and the affiliated businesses in adapting so quickly to the COVID testing requirements that were put in place, and just working together at speed to get that in place to enable visitors and residents and business owners and workers to all go about their plans as easily as possible. And I think from the feedback I've heard in the community, everyone's been really appreciative of that. So well done to everyone involved.
Councillor Nicholas.
I just support what Councillor Vincent said after a couple of distress phone calls the day after the announcement.
You're on mute, Councillor Nicholas, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I thought I pushed the button. I was just going to agree with what Councillor Vincent's already said. For me, it was a couple of distressed people on the phone the day after the announcements were made, to people then being able to go skiing, which is of course what they wanted to do. So yes, well done Alpine Health and all the supporting organisations, Alpine Shire staff and RMB staff, etc., who scrambled to help people achieve those tests that they needed to get. Thanks.
Councillor Keeble.
Concur with everything that's been said in regards to that and the COVID testing. I would just give a shout out also to our local residents who work up in the resorts or having to come back and forth and get COVID tested every 3 days or 7 days, whatever it is that you have to do. I know the schools have been struggling to work out their ski programs and a whole raft of things. So well done to everyone. I know it's not easy. Hopefully they won't be around forever, these restrictions, and we all keep doing the right thing. So well done.
Councillor Janus.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Mine's unfortunately an obituary. The passing of Mr. John Carroll from Mudgegonga just recently. John passed away at home after an illness. John was a former mayor of the Myrtleford Shire and councillor 1988 to 91 from my brief research, beef producer out there, and his wife Julie Carroll, who was also the mayor of the newly formed Alpine Shire Council from 2003 to 2005. So our condolences from council to the Carroll family of Mudgegonga in John's passing. He did a great deal for the community whilst his term in council, and also for the community of Mudgegonga in particular as well.
Thank you. Moving on to declarations by councillors of conflict of interest on any items tonight. Anybody has a conflict? Councillor Vincent, do you have a conflict? Certainly that will be for planning application, correct? Councillor Janus?
Yes, for the community grants item on the matter, I have an interest there.
All right, so we will get our moderator to remove you from the Zoom meeting at the time and then bring you back in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Surprise, surprise, we have no questions on notice tonight. UKVCA, if you're out there, everything must be going exceptionally well over in your neck of the woods. So I do appreciate that. Right, moving on to number 8, 8.1.1, contracts approved by the CEO. The recommendation, Mr. Bird. Oh, well, I could actually do this. Recommendation is that capital works approved by the CEO be noted. And it is just for the reconstruct west half of Pioneer Lane, Cobden Street to North, in conjunction with the developer to upgrade the eastern half. It's a recommendation. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please?
I'll move.
Janice and Councillor Vincent, thank you. Those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Item 8.2, 8.2.1, the Acting Director of Assets, Elaine Burridge, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report relates to the award of a contract for the construction of 4 bridges as part of the Great Valley Trail project, plus the East Ovens Bridge in Harriettville. It's a total of 5 bridges. The 5 proposed bridges are located on land that's not managed by council. However, support has been secured from the various land managers, including the Tungarong Land and Waters Council and other land managers, including DELP and Parks Victoria. 4 of the bridges will be constructed on the shared trail alignment adopted by Council at the 1 June Ordinary Council meeting this year. The total available budget for the Great Valley Trail is $3,150,000 and funding's jointly by Alpine Shire Council, the federal government and the state government. The East Ovens Bridge is separately funded by Bushfire Recovery Victoria. There's sufficient allocation within the budget projects to deliver the bridge construction component of these projects through award of this contract. And our recommendation to councillors as read in the report.
Thank you. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Nicholas. Seconder, Councillor Prime. Councillor Nicholas.
I just wanted to say that I think it's a great outcome that the East Ovens Bridge is being funded, because people have been asking for that in the community for a number of years. So it's well supported, and it's great that we can take advantage of multiple bridges being built at the same time. So well done all.
Thank you.
Councillor Prime, anything to add?
No, nothing to add to that. Well said, Councillor Nicholas.
Thank you. Any other councillors like to make comment on this? No, straightforward. Thank you. I'll put it to the vote then. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Eight 8.2.2, street sweeper procurement. Thank you, Ms Burridge.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report relates to the pre-approval to evaluate and purchase a second-hand street sweeper. So background on this one is the higher cost over recent years for a street sweeper is around about $47,000 per annum. Purchase of a new street sweeper has been evaluated and based on a purchase price of around about $370,000. An amount of $220,000 has been adopted in the 21-22 financial year capital plant budget. Issues: when plant comes up available in their second-hand market, essentially it's a very short time frame and it's a very competitive area to bid on auction for a street sweeper. So our recommendation to council is as read in the report, and essentially that's to delegate the authority to the CEO for this financial year to bid on a second-hand street sweeper that may become available at auction with a maximum purchase of $220,000 plus GST, including any sales commission. In the event that a successful bid is placed, the agreed purchase price will be disclosed at a future council meeting. If a street sweeper becomes available through a direct sale process other than auction, a report will be presented to council at a future council meeting for consideration.
Thank you. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Vincent. Councillor Prime. Councillor Vincent.
No, nothing. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
No. Councillor Prime.
No, nothing from me.
All right. Anybody like to make comment about street sweepers? No, thank you. Put it to the vote, please. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Item 8.2.3, draft access and inclusion plan. Thank you, Councillor Burridge.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report relates to public exhibition of the drafted access and inclusion plan. Under Section 38 of the Victorian Disability Act 2006, council is required to prepare a disability action plan. This identifies actions to remove barriers and increase inclusion for and change attitudes and practices which discriminate against people with a disability. Council's existing disability action plan was adopted in 2011 and revised in 2014. However, it does require updating. Consultation through the process. So there's been various methods of consultation that have been used to engage with our community in the development of the draft plan, as outlined in the council report. And our recommendation to council is as read in the report.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Hughes and Councillor Nicholas. Thank you. Councillor Hughes.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. These are the type of documents that we're really wanting people to have a look at. You know, the more feedback that we have on this, I think the better, especially if you are directly impacted by such a thing. So I really urge people to get out there, or if you know somebody who could benefit from making comments, then I think get it out would be a really good idea.
Councillor Nicholas.
Yes, absolutely, Councillor Hughes, on the money as usual. I also wanted to point out that the document's very much a leadership document, so it's showing other people and organisations in the community what you can do for those who have a disability. So I'd urge people to take that on board too as they look at it.
Any other councillors like to make comment on this one? No, I would just make one comment, and that is that I think it's very good that we're now looking at access and inclusion as opposed to disability. I think that that's a very positive spin on it, especially seeing there's something I believe on the ABC or SBS coming up soon on various attitudes within Australia towards people with disability or being different. Anyway, can I put that to the vote, please? Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. 8.2.4, the Murray Primary Health Network, Community Wellbeing and Participation. Ms Barrett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report relates to the allocation of funding under the Murray Public Health Network Community Wellbeing and Participation activity. So Council's been successful in securing $188,000 plus GST funding from the Murray PHN network under the Community and Wellbeing and Participation Activity Funding Program. It's a funding opportunity made available to bushfire affected communities. So Council, under this funding, councillors to deliver events across the Alpine Shire that aims to bring communities together and raise awareness of support services available in the region. A work plan is being developed, submitted to Murray PHM to deliver the following style of events: a roller skating event, twilight movies, children's events, as well as a live music event. And our recommendation to Council is as provided in the report.
Thank you, Ms Burridge. Could I have a mover and a seconder for that one? Again, Councillor Vincent, seconder, Councillor Janice. Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and congratulations to the Alpine Shire Council team on this. I think it's fantastic. I think events like that are just so important for our community, and the diversity of event style that you mentioned, I think is great in catering to a number of different age groups and much needed positive vibes for the community. Well done.
Councillor Janice.
No, nothing to add on that. I think it's a great outcome, and these events, I suppose, they do bring our community together, and that's what it's all about. To reconnect with each other, and communities are so important.
Good. Any other comments from councillors?
Mr Mayor?
Yes, certainly. Councillor Keeble.
The roller skating event, if you're around in the 80s, I'd love to see the mayor and maybe the deputy mayor, they would have both been around the 80s, come along to the opening of that event in their knee-high roller skates and skating to the Nutbush. That would be very fitting. And the Twilight movies, I did go to one of the Twilight movies last summer, and that was one of Mad Beauty, and it was an excellent opportunity for the community to get together. So, money well spent on community and residents. So, all good.
Thanks, Councillor Keeble, for the challenge. And I'm looking at Councillor Nicholas with a smile on my face. Would you prefer inline skates or the ones that had 4 on them? Did you have a preference on this one?
I'm practiced on both of them.
You've got to have 4. It's roller skating. It's roller skating. You have to have 4. There's no inline skating in the 80s. Right. Yeah. 4 wheels on each foot. I can see Elaine Burridge. She would have been there running around those roller skating rings too.
As it's probably a council event, I'll just double check with the CEO. Are we covered for workers' comp on this one or not?
Yeah, fully covered, Mr Mayor. I think it's an excellent idea suggested by Councillor Dr Tony Keeble, and I look forward to seeing there and Councillor Nicholas.
This could be interesting. I will just clarify one thing, and that is in the background, the events are across the whole of the Alpine Shire, so I think that is excellent too. So could I have some voting on this one, please? Those in favour? Thank you. We're carried on that one. 8.2.5, Community Grants Program 2021-22. I believe Councillor Janice has a conflict of interest. Councillor Janice will be leaving the meeting at 5:21. Ms. Burridge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report relates to the allocation of funding through Council's 2021-22 Community Grants Program. The Community Grants Program is a long-established funding program that assists community groups and organisations across the Shire to deliver community-focused projects, programs and initiatives. The 2021-22 Community Grants Program has attracted 24 eligible applications. So this is a long report. The budget, Council's 21-22 budget includes provision of $80,000 to support this program. The recommended allocation of $74,710 through community grants fits within the allocated budget. So the table shows the applications that are being supported. Recommendations to Council is to allocate the funding as per the recommendations made in the table, that provides delegation to the CEO to distribute residual funds. So the residual funds are $5,290 from the total program budget of $80,000. And the third recommendation to Council is that we provide feedback and assistance to unsuccessful applicants in highlighting other potential funding opportunities that may be available for their projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Councillor Vincent, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just say congratulations to the successful applicants, and that it was I was involved in the process, and it was a really robust process, and yeah, just great to see this kind of coming out of COVID and hopefully into, you know, a better place progressing. So yeah, well done to those who applied and were successful.
All right, Councillor Hughes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. These community events, regardless of their size, are really crucial, especially in small towns and small areas that we live in. It does bring people together, gives them a reason to be going out and having some fun, which most of them are involved in doing. So it's really good to see that there's opportunities put forward for these type of event fundings. And I really urge people that if there is something that you're looking to do, to keep an eye out on these things, because it's definitely worth putting in an application. It wouldn't hurt to go through the process as well, and you could be successful. So well done to everyone involved so far.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Just one thing, this table, does that get published somehow onto the Alpine Shire website after it's carried?
So, Mr. Mayor, the table is actually published as part of the council meeting agenda report. So it's on council's website currently.
Thank you. Good. That's all I need to know. All right. Any other comments on community grants program? Councillor Nicholas.
As Councillor Vincent said, it's a very robust process to go through the grants, and I wanted to thank all the people involved for their time and effort to the assessment. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Any other comments? No? Could I have a show of hands on this one, please? Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Mr. Bird, would you like to bring Councillor Janice back into the meeting, please? At 5:25. Thank you. Welcome back, Councillor Janice.
Thank you.
Item 8.2.6, the event funding program for 21-22. Ms. Burridge again.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This report relates to the allocation of financial sponsorship and provision of logistics to support events through Council's 2021-22 event funding program. So the event funding program received 36 applications this year. Applications that were received were preliminary, there was a preliminary assessment by the events team looking at the criteria around event funding, so as per our event funding guidelines. Guided by this preliminary scoring and eligibility, the applications were then reviewed by an assessment panel, which comprised of a number of members of our community across the Shire, as well as 2 councillors. The panels recommended that 29 applications receive support through the event funding program, pardon me, which leads to a total of $74,600 in support through logistics and also financial sponsorship. At the August council meeting in 2021, council agreed that any event funding that wasn't able to be utilised throughout the 2020-21 financial year as a result of events being cancelled or postponed because of COVID-19 restrictions, that event funding essentially would be provided to those event organisers for the 21-22 financial year. And that has a cost implication of $124,100. The total budget for event support is $230,000, and that's made up of $40,000 to the Spartan event, of which $30,000 is funded by federal government, and state and council supporting the event that couldn't occur last year at $10,000. So altogether, we have an amount of $228,700, which is within the available budget of $230,000. So the recommendation to council is that we allocate financial sponsorship and provide logistics to support the events, as indicated in the table in the report. A further recommendation.
So, Mr. Mayor, pardon me, Ms. Burridge.
Councillor Janis, yes.
Thank you. I'd like to have a third.
Are you moving this or not?
I'll move it. I'll move it with a third point, if I could, please.
Certainly. Somebody second, please. Councillor Vincent. Go ahead, Councillor Janis.
The third point I'd like to put in is that the proviso that if an event is unable to be held due to COVID restrictions, that if that event is to occur the following year, then the applicant won't have to reapply unless reasons state that they have to reapply for whatever, but that grant money remains the same. Is that sort of clear, or I don't have the wording in front of me, I'm sorry.
That's all right. We can.
It's a similar wording to the previous year.
And would that also include things that were that were funded last year that may have a 2-year hiatus? Would you include that?
Correct.
In this?
Yes, and
that's
some
correct.
of those events must be. They're long-standing events, and there's a lot of work goes into those plans.
So. Yes, Mr. Bird.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just wondering whether Mr. Jeremy, who's taking the minutes, could actually read out what he's understood, so then all councils have a clear and consistent understanding of what is being proposed.
Certainly, we were getting to that, which will be recommendation 3. So before we do that, council is happy with us going down this track? Yes, thank you. Yes, Mr. Jeremy, would you have some wording for this, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what I've recorded is as follows. If an event is cancelled as a result of COVID-19 restrictions, the funding allocation for that event through the 2020-21 event funding programme will be made available to the event to be delivered during the 2022-23 financial year without the event organiser having to reapply for funds.
Certainly. Yes. I think it should be 21-22, shouldn't it? Not 2021. That's already passed.
For the following year.
I'm going to defer that to Elaine. So the event funding was open during the 2020-21 financial year. So if you could confirm, Elaine, that that's how you see it.
Yeah, it should be the 21-22 financial year, because that's what we're dealing with right now.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
21, 22.
So would you like to read that back out again? Sorry, Councillor Hughes, would you like to have a say there, please?
Yeah, sorry, just asking the question on any events that have already been rolled over that weren't able to do it last time. If that was to be cancelled again due to COVID, will that then be able to be rolled over for a second year as well?
That was my question earlier on, and that's the understanding of Councillor Janice, who has proposed this.
Right,
That's
okay, so it
intent
can
in the
go 2
recommendation.
years worth.
Yes, yeah.
That's correct.
In other words, it would go for 2 years. Yep.
Mr. Mayor, if I may interject. What council's considering tonight is 21-22. So some of those events which were cancelled last year due to COVID restrictions have been brought forward for consideration in 21-22. So what council is considering tonight, if they make a decision on, will be 21-22. So what is being proposed is that if there were cancellations based on what's being adopted now, that would be carried over to 22-23.
That is correct. So can we have a reading of this, recommendation 3, please, again?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If an event is cancelled as a result of COVID-19 restrictions, the funding allocation for that event through the 2021-22 event funding programme will be made available to the event to be delivered during the 2022-23 financial year without the event organiser having to reapply for funds.
Thank you. Is that clear to all councillors, please? Yes? Okay. Councillor Janice, did you wish to talk any more about the event funding program?
Look, just one highlight there, which I think it's the women's bike event, it's a great thing, and it promotes women in sport. That's very important in this day and age. We don't see enough promotion of women in sport through all sorts of sports, not just cycling. So I wish them good luck with that, and I believe they do have a lot of fun on that during that period of time, and I wish them well with it. And I wish all the other events well, and hope that they all can be go ahead in this next year.
Good. Councillor Vincent, did you have anything more to add regarding the event funding program?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I second Councillor Janice's comments, and great to see a really diverse mix of events, and fingers crossed that we can see a smoother year ahead for those events. And yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Vincent. Yes, Councillor Nicholas.
I wanted to comment on the diversity of the events as well, and how many new events there are in the lineup, and that's absolutely terrific. But I also wanted to pick out the Myrtleford Repair Cafe, because I've been talking about that for the upper ovens for as long as I can remember almost, and it's a big job to get that going, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it getting off the ground, and hopefully we can spread that through the Alpine Shire. So thank you for the people who are working on that project in particular.
I believe that one's gone into the community grants, not as an event, but it's gone into the community grants because of the nature. Is that correct, Ms. Barrett?
Yes, that's correct. We deferred that one. It was applied for through the event funding program, and we deferred it over to the community grants program, and it's being supported through the community grants program.
Excellent.
Thank you for that.
Good.
I was wondering why there were all those nils.
Yeah, good. Any other comments on the event funding program?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to thank the people on the panels for the community grants and the events funding. It's a very big task, and I've sat on a number of those panels, and people give up their time to do that. So I want to publicly thank those people and the two councillors and all the councillors that have been in that decision-making process.
Thank you, Councillor Janice. That being the case, I'll put this one to the vote. We now have 3, which is to allocate the financial sponsorship provide logistic support as events as follows. Recommendation 2 is provide feedback and assistance to unsuccessful applicants, and item or recommendation 3 is as was read by Mr. Jeremy. Those in favour, please. Thank you. That is carried. One mention that didn't come up earlier is that Bendigo Bank have been very supportive in some of our things as well, totally funding some of the community grant structures. I think the ones that may have fallen through the cracks with the Alpine Shire, but Bendigo Bank have picked them up as well. Moving on to 8.3.1, the Acting Director of Corporate Performance, Mr. Will Jeremy. Draft Community Vision, Council Plan and Financial Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report relates to the adoption by Council of the Draft Community Vision and Council Plan, which incorporates the Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan and also the Draft Financial Plan. So all Victorian councils are required to develop a community vision, a council plan, a financial plan and a Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan. These plans supersede the 2030 Community Vision and the 2017 to 2021 Alpine Shire Council Plan. In terms of the long-term financial plan, councils maintained one of these for many years, but it's only recently become a requirement of the Local Government Act that this plan is also adopted by council meetings. What's been interesting about this process is the consultation that's been carried out. So a new requirement of the Local Government Act 2020 is for a process of deliberative engagement with the community in the establishment of the council plan, the council vision and the Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan. So there's quite a broad engagement process has been carried out, which commenced in March this year with an online survey, community pop-ups, workshops and a community webinar. And we had a total of 368 community members participate in these various engagement opportunities at that point, which was really positive. Following this, we went through an expression of interest process and we established a community panel. So we had 46 community panel members selected from the people who applied through the expression of interest process. And these were selected independently in order to achieve a representative sample of community members representing a spread of demographics of age, gender, location, home ownership, and other selected social indicators. So these panel members then invited to take part in 6 deliberative engagement sessions held during May and June. 23 of the panel members participated and the output from these workshops was used to develop the strategic objectives of the council plan. So this, to my awareness, is the first time we've had a deliberative engagement process like this to establish the council plan. Recommendation that I'm proposing tonight, that council endorses the following documents for the purpose of seeking public submissions. So the Draft Community Vision 2040 and the Council Plan 2021-25, incorporating the Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan and the Draft Financial Plan. That council invites submissions, public submissions on these documents for a period of 28 days, and then considers a recommendation to adopt the final documents at the October 2021 Ordinary Council meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? There's Councillor Nicholas. Seconder, Councillor Hughes. Councillors?
I think Mr. Jeremy's pretty much said it all, but I want to emphasise the incredible work that went into, or the support that went into the whole deliberative engagement process, and I really like the outcome, and I think it's terrific that we've had so many people contributing to where we're going to be going into the future. It's great. And it's going out for more people to look at, so can we please have some comments?
Good. Councillor Hughes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This has been a major project since coming on board as a councillor myself. It's been a very, very big project. It's allowed us as new councillors, I mean, I don't want to talk on behalf of the others, but to be able to get to know each other as a team and how we work and what we're thinking as well. And it really goes to show that our community are all kind of driving towards similar goals. And it's really good to see that the voice of the community panel is coming through very strong, very clear. And I look forward to seeing what else we can do in conjunction with this community panel moving forward. But in relation to these documents specifically, they're really important. They're a good read as well. So I do urge people to jump on, have a look, start discussions and things like that amongst yourselves, and get some information back if you feel that there's something you might have that's important to pop in there.
Any other councillors like to make comment on this? Yeah, Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just like to thank the members of the community panel and the facilitators of those meetings. They put in a lot of hours of work, and from all reports are really engaged, and to see a foundational document like this developed from the community members is a really exciting process to be involved in. But thank you to those individuals who really developed the content of this.
Excellent. Any other comments, councillors? Councillor Janis? You're on mute, Councillor Janis.
Got it.
That's better.
I concur with what the other councillors have said, but when we call for comments, could I ask for constructive comments to be made, please? This is a very important document. We've had a great cross-section of our community involved in that panel, in those panels. And, you know, a lot of thought and effort has gone into it. So it might not be perfect, but if you want to say something, let's be constructive about it, because this is not just the future of this current council, but it's the future of the way we want to lead our community into the future. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Good point, Councillor Janis. Anybody else like to make comment? Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The council plan, or the draft council vision and council plan and financial plan, they're really important plans, and for us as a council to look back each year, and we get to the end of the 4th year, and it keeps us and everyone accountable on the path that we are heading. Won't include all the work that needs to be done the next 4 years, but it includes, you know, a really strong direction. So thanks to everyone who's been part of it, the new process. Fantastic. Thank you.
Excellent. Anybody else? Councillor Nicholas, who write a reply to anything? No? Okay. I would just point out one thing, and that is that the long-term financial plan that Mr. Jeremy has mentioned was an internal document, and I think he mentioned that. And so I think that this is the first time that Alpine Shire residents actually will get a look at how much thought actually goes into where we are going and where we're heading over the next 10 years and what it's actually going to cost us. So, and that's trying to put into place some of the things that are variable, i.e. how good is our rate structure? Where are we getting some of the things from? So please, as Councillor Janis said, please, and Councillor Hughes, everybody have a look at this, please. Have a look at these plans, and constructive criticism is always good. Thank you. Can I put this to the vote, please? Those in favour? Thank you. That's been carried. Mr. Jeremy again, 8.3.2, Community Satisfaction Survey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to share Council's results from the 2021 Local Government Community Satisfaction Survey. So the annual Local Government Community Satisfaction Survey is coordinated by Local Government Victoria, and it's conducted by JWS Research on Local Government Victoria's behalf. So it's independent of council. It's not a survey that's run by Alpine Shire Council. We're given the opportunity to opt into this, which council chose to. And as noted in the report, 66 of 79 Victorian councils did participate in this survey. Within the Alpine Shire Council, in 2021, the survey consisted of phone interviews with 400 residents. And these were selected to match the demographic profile of the Alpine Shire according to the most recently available Australian Bureau of Statistics estimate. Up to 60% of the survey calls were made to mobile phone numbers, and the surveys were conducted during February and March 2021. So we've published in the report the results. I'm going to call out a couple of the points of interest from those results. So within the top performing areas, sealed local roads, Council's index score of 63 for Seal local roads remains significantly higher than both the small rural and the statewide averages, which are 53 and 57 respectively. And Seal local roads continues to be an area where Council consistently performs well. Customer service is also notable. So Council's index score of 70 has improved by 5 points since the 2020 survey, and it returns to a more usual pattern of index scores between 69 and 70, which we've seen over recent years. The 2021 result is consistent with the small rural and the statewide averages, which are 69 and 70 respectively. So those are what we see as the top performing areas. When it comes to lower performing areas, there were no areas where Council did not perform, where Council performed significantly lower than average during 2021. So Council's overall direction had an index score of 52, which is similar to small rural and statewide averages, which are both 53. That was, however, Council's lowest scoring measure on the survey. So if we look at areas for focus, there's a couple. The survey suggests that community decisions is an area that Council may wish to focus on in the coming years in order to return its index scores to those that we saw back in 2019, which were higher. Consultation and engagement is another area where the report suggests that a focus could be made, although the 2021 results are consistent with Council's 7-year average in the area. The report also suggests that Council considers how to address differing opinions of residents within the Shire. So the Upper Ovens residents consistently score Council's performance lower than those in the Lower Ovens and the Kiewa Valley. So those are probably the key points, but we've put the full results there in that report. So recommendation tonight is that Council notes Alpine Shire Council's results from the 2021 Local Government Community Satisfaction Survey.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Vincent and Councillor Prime. Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well done to Alpine Shire for opting in, firstly, to this. And I guess for community members out there, this isn't to say that there isn't people out there who've had a bad or a negative customer experience, but I think what it highlights is how seriously the Alpine Shire Council takes the customer service side of what we do, and that this feedback is really taken in and considered. And as a new councillor, I'm still saying that, but yeah, as a new councillor within the first year, it's really positive to see how serious the council takes the customer service experience, and there feels like a big focus on improvement. So for those out there who've had a negative experience, please know that we're taking on board that feedback, and there's constant focus on improvement as well.
Thanks, Councillor Vincent. Councillor Prime, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, look, always good to get feedback, whether it's good or bad. It's the only way a service improves. So thanks for everyone that participated like that. So, and again, like Councillor Vincent said, we take it very seriously.
Thanks, Councillor Prime. I believe you've got your hands full. Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to add the fact that just looking at the statistics that are on the listed on there, that even with discussions we've had tonight throughout this council meeting, is showing that we are forever advancing what it is we want to do with the community and how to make things better. So taking documents and ideas and things like that out to community consultation, I think is going to be creating, I really would hope to think that a lot of the statistics are going to increase in our favour if we were to do this again and participate again. One of the biggest things I always put out there is, if you have something that you're not happy with, then flag it. Don't whinge about it, just get it done and then talk to somebody about it, because it just might not be known. And if you make it aware, then there's an opportunity there. So I really urge people, communications goes both ways, to us as well as from us. So I think it's a team effort here.
Thanks, Councillor Hughes. Any other councillor like to make comment on this? Yes, Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I would say, given the 18 months that we've had, you know, the work of the council officers, the council management, councillors, all our, you know, community members, no one's dropped the ball. They, you know, the percentages, the figures are still pretty high, even though there might have been one or two higher in 2019. We're only talking a few few different percentages here and there. So, you know, we can always be better, and everyone's striving always to be better. And I know that that will continue. You've just seen the 4-year plan put up. So we'll continue. And well done, everyone.
I'll just add to Councillor Keeble there, and that is that Mr. Jeremy mentioned it, but the fantastic improvement in the customer service, especially during the last year. So I think that just bodes well for the coming years. Any other councillors like to make a comment on this at all? No? Okay, so I shall put this to the vote. Those in favour, please. I think that's carried. Thank you very much. 8.3.3, the Toowoomba Scout Hall. Mr. Jeremy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report relates to a proposal for council to purchase land at 43 Kiwa Valley Highway, Toowoomba. So that's the site that the Toowoomba Scout Hall is located on. So this site has been owned by the Scouts Association of Australia, the Victorian branch, since 1972. In March 2017, the building that's located on this land, which is the Toowoomba Scout Hall, was inspected by council's municipal building inspector, and significant issues were identified across a wide range of the building components. In July 2021, council received advice from the owner that the property owner is considering selling the land. Now, this land is considered to have strategic value as a community asset. It's centrally located in Toowoomba, and it's located immediately adjacent to the Toowoomba Pioneer Memorial Park. So council's community engagement policy states that council will engage with the community when community members will be impacted by the decisions under consideration by council, and when the community members can have an impact on the decision to be made. And we think both of these criteria are fulfilled in this case, which is why we're proposing to go through a process of seeking community feedback on the proposal to potentially purchase this land. The recommendation presented to council tonight is that council authorises the Chief Executive Officer to give public notice of a proposal for council to purchase land at 43 Kiwa Valley Highway, Toowoomba, invites public submissions on the proposal, with submissions closing 3 p.m. on the 18th of August 2021, and considers a recommendation for council to purchase the land at the September meeting of council.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Janus and Councillor Keeble. Councillor Janus.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think this is a wise move by council to go through this process, particularly with the proximity to the park next door and the proposed works that are going to be happening with the Toowoomba Better Places project going forward. And it's a futuristic looking plan, and we need to consider the expansion of the area and the usefulness of that land to the adjoining park area. So this would be a great win for the community should we be able to purchase that area.
Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. There has been a lot of talk in the Kiwa Valley about the Toowoomba Scout Hall land over the last journey. And, you know, we can confidently say that the land was actually legitimately sold. There is paperwork to the Scouts. It was sold, and the Scouting Association of Victoria do hold the paperwork there. And that this is a recommendation for us to, you know, get some ideas of submissions and proposals if we were to buy it. It doesn't mean we'll actually be successful in purchasing it, but it's our intention to say, well, we're interested in it. What does the community, what ideas are out there that the community would like to see that land be used for? And from time to time, shires buy land, and sometimes we're successful and sometimes we're not. And we'll see where this one goes. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other councillors like to make comment on this particular aspect of how council works or the actual site itself? No? Okay, in that case, let's put this one to the vote. Those in favour of this? Thank you. That's carried. 8.3.4, Bright Cyclonic Rod Run designation and restrictions, or designation of restrictions, I should say. Mr. Jeremy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to recommend to Council that Council approves restrictions on the consumption of liquor on Council land under clause 2.2.1 of the Community Local Law 2019 during Bright's iconic Rod Run event in 2021. So for the 2019 Hot Rod event, Council introduced additional restrictions on the consumption of liquor on Council land for the duration of the event, which was from 6th of November through to 10th of November 2019. And this was under clause 2.2.1 of the Community Local Law. These restrictions were based on the recommendations of the Risk Assessment Panel, which consisted of council officers, representatives of the Victoria Police, Ambulance Victoria, Alpine Health, Victorian State Emergency Service, and the Country Fire Authority, the CFA. Following a debrief of this event, it was agreed that Council would consider future restrictions on the consumption of alcohol in a timely manner in order to allow event organisers and other attendees at the event to plan on the basis of restrictions which were known. So we aimed, for the event coming up this year, we aimed to make this decision or this recommendation to Council as early as possible. We engaged with the Bright Rod and Bright's Rod and Custom Club Committee, and they actually requested a delay in the decision being presented to Council and an opportunity to present their plans to a Council briefing session. So the Hot Rod Club were presented with that opportunity to present to Council. And subsequent to that, there was agreement reached that we would defer a recommendation to Council to this August Council meeting, giving the Hot Rod Club the opportunity to present a proposal for their event, which could then be assessed by the Risk Assessment Panel. So Risk Assessment Panel convened and reviewed the event application or the documentation that was submitted by the Hot Rod Committee. The Hot Rod Committee was provided the opportunity to present to the Risk Assessment Panel, which is the first time that the Hot Rod Committee has had that opportunity. And subsequently, there was a discussion in closed room or closed panel with the Risk Assessment Panel. And the Risk Assessment Panel provided a list of recommendations, which I've included in the Council report there. So the recommendation that we're presenting to Council tonight is that Council approves the designation of an area to be an area designated by Council for the purposes of clause 2.2.1 of the Community Local Laws to be an alcohol restricted area for the period from 10 p.m. Thursday 4th of November to 7 a.m. Monday 8th of November 2021. And perhaps it's worth me clarifying or explaining the maps. So if you reflect back on the maps from 2019, there was quite a widespread restriction on alcohol in 2019, which encompassed all council managed land within the township of Bright. So anywhere there was a 60-kilometre-hour zone or less on a council road, or there was a reserve within that area, then there was a restriction on alcohol. And what the Risk Assessment Panel has agreed this year, based on a proposal put forward by the Hot Rod Committee, is some lesser restrictions. So reducing the area that those restrictions on the consumption of alcohol are applied. And the restriction is brought into being the CBD. So the streets and the parks and reserves in and immediately adjacent to the CBD. And also there's a recommendation that the restrictions include Pioneer Park Reserve as well for the duration of the event from the Thursday evening through to the Monday morning.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Councillor Hughes and Councillor Nicholas. Councillor Hughes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Congratulations to the Bright Rod and Custom Club in working with Council on this one. You know, they put together a lot, and also to the team at the Alpine Shire for working with the Rod Run to get a good outcome on this one. This is the 30th Bright Rod Run, so without declaring my age, it's pretty much been my life. Growing up, so having this event annually, I know that it brings the same type of people coming back to the town and enjoying what it is that we have here to offer, and not just in Bright but the surrounding areas as well. So it is a really important event that we want to see run properly, but also to benefit community and the businesses alike. So working with them on an outcome and putting events together that everybody can work well together is a really good thing. So I urge everyone to get involved. It's always a lot of fun.
Councillor Nicholas.
Congratulations to the committee. Yes, indeed. Councillor Hughes, they've worked very hard to get to this point. It's been a vexed issue over the years. And it's terrific to see that the Hot Rod Committee have not only worked with council but also presented to the Risk Management Committee, and that's an important that was an important bit of communication. And this outcome keeps safety at the fore, but allows a relaxation of restrictions where the risk is not so severe. I apologise, I just had something pop up on my screen. And the committee or the Hot Rod show has rolled with changes for a long time. But when I first saw it, as far as I can remember anyway, the show and shine was in the main street of Bright. So it's from that to moving to Pioneer Park, and it's grown in the meantime, has shown that the I guess how strong the event is, and so it's great to see it continuing into the future.
Thank you. Any other comments from any councillors? Councillor Janice.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm heartened that the fact that the Risk Assessment Committee have worked with the Rod Run in this area, and as Councillor Nicholas has said, it has been a difficult period these last number of years in establishing a safer precinct for this event, and it is an iconic event in our shire. But you know, I'm always concerned about the combination of alcohol and cars, and our how we I suppose present that out there. We don't want to send wrong messages to our young drivers and the like. I don't know whether the two should be aligned per se, but nevertheless, the Risk Assessment Committee have made a decision, and I respect their decision on that. And just on a lighter side, and I hope this never happens per se, being an old car owner myself, but what happens when we get electric vehicles? That's all. I'll end it on a light note.
Any other comments? Councillor Keeble.
Councillor Janice, I'm not sure that's the question. I think the question is what happens when you run out of petrol to put them in there? How will you get them going?
That'll never happen. As you know, Councillor Keeble, driving up here in the Northern Territory where you drive for 400 or 500 kilometres without a fuel station, you're going to be hard pressed plugging in.
Any other comments? All right, great outcome. Could I have a vote on this, please? Those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. That has been carried. 8.3.5, Swimming Pools and Bright Sports Centre Management and Operations. Mr. Jeremy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report relates to the award of a contract for the management and the operations of the Bright Sports Centre, the Mount Beauty Pool, the Myrtleford Pool, the Bright River Pool and the Porpunka River Pool. In September 2019, Council awarded a contract to Momentum One Shared Services for the provision of labour hire and accompanying technology services for employee classifications associated with aquatics and recreational facilities. So lifeguards for council seasonal pools and some lifeguards, learn to swim instructors and centre attendants for the Bright Sports Centre have been engaged under the terms of this contract. Services under the contract will be ending in September 2021, and this prompted Council in June 2021 to enter into a joint tender process with the Indigo Shire Council for the provision of swimming pools and Bright Sports Centre management and operations. So the purpose of this tender was to explore market options for the management of Council's seasonal swimming pools and the Bright Sports Centre. The tender called for proposals for management of operations of both Indigo Shire and Alpine Shire Council's pools and the Bright Sports Centre. The tender enabled Indigo Shire Council and Alpine Shire Council to make separate determinations as to which, if any, of the tendered options they were to recommend. Tender was advertised through a public tender process. 10 companies downloaded the tender submission, and we received the tender documents, and we received 3 submissions. 3 submissions included 2 for the full management of council seasonal pools and the Bright Sports Centre, and one submission was just for the management of the Bright Sports Centre, including the pool in the Sports Centre. Key considerations in assessing these submissions include the experience of the people, the tenderers, in operating swimming pools and aquatic/leisure centres, resourcing and organisational support to the organisations that have tendered, venue management systems those tendering organisations have in place or have available, programme development and oversight, the customer service systems that are proposed, pandemic operating models and the resilience of the organisations and their capacity to respond and adapt to a changing environment around pandemic, and references that are provided of other locations where those tenderers are operating. So following an assessment process, it has been determined that the tender from Belgravia Leisure for the operation and the management of the Alpine Shire Council's pools and the Bright Sports Centre best met the selection criteria that have been set out in advance. The tenders were assessed against the option for council to continue operating the pools in the Bright Sports Centre as it currently does. And the submission from Belgravia over the 3 years of the contract, excluding the options, is estimated to provide a 6% saving against the forecast cost if we were to continue operating these pools ourselves as council. We also carried out a separate evaluation of the submissions, just purely focusing on the Bright Sports Centre, so putting aside the other pools. And on a standalone basis, Belgravia Leisure was also assessed to best meet the selection criteria for that site in itself. Year one services under the contract with Belgravia are estimated to cost $471,000 plus GST. It's noted that this contract amount may vary if the closure of the site is required due to COVID-19 restrictions. So this, of course, is not known at this point in time. For comparison, if council was to continue with the direct operation of these sites, council's year one costs are expected to be $507,000 plus GST. The 2021 adopted budget has been based on council's net operating costs. Therefore, the award of contract as recommended will result in a net saving against the budgeted amount for this provision of this service. The recommendation to council tonight. So we've had a couple of amendments to the recommendation that's presented in the agenda report that's been on our website, one of which was to correct an error on behalf of the council officers, and one was to provide additional clarification. So if I could read out the new recommendation, which reads, recommendation is that council awards contract number 21070001 for the provision of swimming pools and Bright Sports Centre management and operations to Belgravia Leisure for an initial term of 3 years, plus the option for 3 further terms of 1 year each, with a year one lump sum price of $471,000 plus GST. And recommendation 2, that the council delegates authority to the CEO to execute this contract.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. Are all councillors cognizant of the changes to the recommendation? Yes, okay. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Mover, Charlie, Councillor Vincent, and seconder, Councillor Nicholas. Thank you. Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Jeremy. Thank you for the extensive background on that. To our knowledge, it was a very comprehensive tender process, and I suppose the word that jumped out at me in the assessment criteria is experience as well, like a yes, price, but also that key element of experience in operating similar facilities. And to my knowledge, Belgravia, from my own personal work experience, a good operator. So congratulations to them on winning the pending this decision. Thank you.
Councillor Nicholas.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent and Mr. Mayor. The other part of the contract tender assessment is, or one other part is social benefit. And I know that there's discussion in the community already about having a local provider versus a larger company for the Bright Sports Centre in particular. The local provider was assessed as having a high social benefit. So that has been taken into account in the decision making. And council has to make some really hard decisions sometimes. And we need to be thinking about the greatest good for the greatest number. And from the assessment that I've seen and from my research into Belgravia, etc., then I concur with Councillor Vincent that if we do go down that, depending on the way the vote goes, then congratulations to Belgravia, and I think they'll do a great job.
Any other comments from councillors? Councillor Hughes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Councillor Vincent and Councillor Nicholas have also said, you know, Belgravia do come with quite a big experience in running leisure centres like this. It hasn't been a small discussion. I know from myself, there's been many questions asked, trying to weigh up between them and the local provider. I think that what Belgravia have on offer for our centre is going to be a really big positive. And I think that's the biggest thing to take out of this is the type of facilities that are going to be accessible for us, and the changes that we're going to see. I do see a positive for our community as a whole in this one. So,
Thanks, Councillor Hughes. Any other comments by any other councillors on this? Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mayor Forsyth. Pools. Our community love their pools. We've had lots of discussions over many years about pools. The Bright Sports Centre, you know, with the pool there, helps with, you know, learn to swim classes and hydrotherapy classes. It's a super important pool, even though it's a small pool. And our other two outdoor pools and our Bright River Rock Pool and Pulpunka River pools are all really important to the fabric of our communities. So none of these discussions about who runs them is a light discussion. And, you know, I look forward to the vote.
Thanks, Councillor Keeble. Right, any other councillors? No, in that case, look, I'll put this to the vote. Those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. We have that carried. 8.3.6, I believe this is some housekeeping. Instruments of Appointment and Authorisation, Planning and Environment Act 1987. Mr. Jeremy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report relates to the appointment and authorisation of a planning officer. So very briefly, we've, or council's engaged a new planning officer. And in order for them to carry out their duties under the Planning and Environment Act 1987, we need to delegate authorisations to them, and that's the purpose of this report.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Janus. Seconder, Councillor Nicholas. Any comment, Councillor Janus?
No, housekeeping, and I'm really pleased that we got another planning officer. They're rare as hen's teeth. So let's hope that we can retain their services for a lengthy period of time.
Well said. Councillor Nicholas.
Nothing to add.
Any other councillors like comments? Thank you. To the vote. Those in favour, thank you very much. That's carried. 8.3.7, I believe Councillor Vincent has a conflict of interest here. Councillor Vincent will leave the meeting at 6:14. Thank you, Mr. Bird. Right, planning application, 58 Walkers Lane, Bright. Mr. Jeremy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the planning this report relates to planning application P 2020-216, which is 58 Walkers Lane in Bright. Proposal involves a 4-lot subdivision. Smallest lot has an area of 507 square metres and the largest lot has an area of 678 square metres. So the application was advertised in accordance with section 52 of the Planning and Environment Act. Notice of the application being sent to the surrounding landholders and occupiers and a sign being erected on the site. We received one objection. The matters raised in the objection have been summarised in the report which we've presented to you tonight, as well as the assessing officer's response to that objection. An online planning forum was held on Thursday, 24th of June 2021. The council's planning officers have been through the application, considering the objection that was received and their response to the objection. And the conclusion of this assessment is that the application is considered to be consistent with the Alpine Planning Scheme, and it should be approved for the following summarised reasons within the conclusion. So the proposal generally meets the relevant provisions of the state and local planning policy framework, general residential zone, the bushfire management overlay, particular provisions including the public open space contribution and subdivision, bushfire planning and residential subdivision, and the decision guidelines that are contained within the planning scheme. The proposal provides an appropriate design and respects the existing and desired neighbourhood character of the area. So the recommendation to council tonight is that a notice of decision to grant a planning permit be issued for a 4-lot subdivision in accordance with the conditions outlined in Appendix 8.3.7a and for the reasons that are summarised in the recommendation. One thing I do want to note to councillors is that we've made a correction to one of the conditions, so that's condition 4D, which now reads vehicular access to lot 4 must only be from Lachlan Court. And I'd like to thank the member of the public who pointed out that mistake to us.
Thank you. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Janus and Councillor Hughes. Councillor Janus.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think this is something that's it's got some positivity about it, seeing as that we are lacking in the housing region or area in and around Brighton, and in some cases overall in the Shire. I'm pleased that the lots aren't as small as I thought that they may have been, because we have had some very small lots go through, even though they do comply with our planning policy. So this makes use of a generous piece of land, and I'm hoping that the buildings that go onto it will fit nicely into the neighbourhood there. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Councillor Janus. Councillor Hughes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, looking through it and having discussions on it, the size of the blocks that they're proposing, you know, yes, it is dividing the current property into 4, but they're not, like we've seen, smaller within the Alpine Shire. I think that the size block in the area that it is so close to town it could be giving a little bit more opportunity to younger families and first buyers being able to get into the market, because we all know what the prices are like in our area. I know that I feel for people who aren't in it at the moment. You know, I was lucky enough to get into it beforehand, but doing it now would just be out of the question. So I really hope that strategically placed subdivisions like this can lead to some good outcomes in the future. So thanks.
Any other comments from councillors? No, I just make the point that, as Councillor Hughes said, you're at one end of your life and you didn't want to mention your age before, but I'm thinking of downsizers in this case as well. Ideal situation there. All right, no other comments. Let's put this to the vote. Those in favour of this recommendation, please. Okay, we have unanimous. Thank you for that. Mr. Bird, would you like to reintroduce Councillor Vincent, please? Councillor Vincent's rejoined the meeting at 6:19. Thank you. That is the main part of the meeting. Right. Item number 9. Informal meeting of councillors. That a summary of informal meeting of councillors for the June and July 2021 be received. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Nicholas, Councillor Prime. Any comment? No. To the vote. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Item 10, general business, starting with Councillor Prime.
No, none from me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Big shout out to everybody that's had to jump in and out of different COVID restrictions, changes, schooling, work, home, all of those type of things. It's never easy. I feel like the seamlessness of it is happening easier, but it still doesn't make it any easier while it's happening. So well done to everybody. You know, supporting the local businesses again is a really big must. Without them, we wouldn't have the economy that we do. So get out there and support those businesses that are able to run during this time. So that was one point. Another point is, you know, we're at a time now where we've got capabilities of being able to jump on Zoom and do these things electronically and digitally, seeing each other like the Brady Bunch on the screen. And it means that business can continue and we can continue to make these big decisions that we need to be doing. So big shout out to everybody at council who's able to manage timeframes and things like that to continue business as normal. But also a big shout out to Councillor Prime, who is, as we are all aware, in and amongst the youngness of her most recent addition to the family, and she's been just as involved as she ever was with briefing sessions and council meetings, emails, phone discussions and things like that. It's not an easy feat for anybody, regardless of the age of children, but having a newborn is a big adjustment in itself, and still being able to be a community representative, I think that's really, very highly of you for that, so well done.
Well said, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Nicholas. No general business. Councillor Keeble.
I do. Thanks, Mayor Forsyth. And if I may, this might take a minute or two, so hopefully that's okay. The Mount Beauty Golf Club put in a submission a while ago for some funding through the Black Summer Bushfire Recovery Grants. And they're applying again in September time. And for those people that don't know, you know, the Mount Beauty Golf Club is a not-for-profit golf club, and I'm not a member. They have over 135 members, and they volunteer their time to look after the golf course. They're applying again, 2nd of September, for another round of the Black Summer Bushfire Recovery Grants for what they're calling the Upper Carra Valley Recreation and Community Hub. It will have a pavilion, a flexible space dedicated for events, functions, community use, open space design. And the things that will include will have equivalent to up to 6 jobs during the build, up to 12 new ongoing employment opportunities in hospitality and support, increased visitation and visitor expenditure across the local community, increased local accommodation demand, and it'll be a new business. They're looking for support. We provided support last time with a letter, and I just would like to, put it to the councils that a recommendation of a further letter to the Mount Beauty Golf Club to support in their endeavour of this particular building. It's not a Shire asset. It's not a Shire building. It's a privately, run by the members there of the club, but it will increase, tourism and also increase employment for local people in the area. So I just wanted to put it out there for a recommendation. If we're able to do another letter of support, please, Mayor Forsyth.
Certainly send anything through, and something will get out into their mailbox accordingly. Thanks, Councillor Keeble. Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few comments on road safety and wildlife from me. Firstly, being with the weather conditions, in particular, the roads up to the Alpine resorts. I know there's been a number of incidents in the last couple of weeks with vehicles going over the side who didn't have the appropriate chains and whatnot. So just a reminder, I guess, for everyone's safety, and just to take note of what you need to travel safely. And on that, I guess on roads as well, I'd like to acknowledge the work of the local wildlife rescuers at the moment, who I'm aware have been absolutely inundated with rescues. And for those who don't know out there, our local wildlife rescuers have a no-kill policy that they created for themselves. So when they find a joey, they will find a home for it. Those animals get rehabilitated locally, which is a really good news story, and maybe a reminder that if you do find a hidden animal or find one on the side of the road, checking their pouch and giving a call to one of those rescuers is just a great way of being able to keep our wildlife thriving here. That's all from me. Thank you.
Councillor Vincent, are the telephone numbers on council website for that?
Yeah, the telephone number on the council website, and ROA, or Reach Out Wildlife Australia, is our local wildlife shelter. They have a social media page and a website, so their numbers are accessible there as well, 24/7.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent. Councillor Janis, general business.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Councillor Hughes has said. Basically, buy local, support local in these tough times that businesses are having. Our community is important. Businesses have been generously donating to various clubs, schools and organisations over the good times. It's now time for us to support our local businesses going forward, and so that we can maintain those jobs for our children after school, working in the supermarket and all those sorts of things that train our community up. Councillor Keeble, with the golf club, little tip, if they join the Cooper PD Golf Club here, which is pure sand, they get automatic membership to St Andrews. So they might be able to sell their membership to raise a bit of money for them.
There you go.
Up there. Take a leaf out of Cooper Petey's
I will
golf
pass
club.
that on. I wondered they will pass that on.
And just supporting the wildlife people as well. People want to make a donation to those workers. They put in a lot of their own resource into that. I'm sure they'd welcome some form of donation as well. They do a fantastic job. When you see, as in my local trips here, the amount of roadkill on the side of the road, it's disheartening at times to see all that. So, yeah, that's important to us.
Thanks, Councillor Janis. I just have two things I'd like to congratulate, I think, and I didn't do it earlier. Rory Hazeldine, 20 years, I believe, with Alpine Shire, and finishing up on Friday the 13th, along with Kim Bailey, who is retiring after 40 years at council. So look, good luck to the rest of what you're doing in the rest of your life, basically. So well done. Item 11, motions for which notice has previously been given. Sorry, Councillor Keeble.
Before starts, if I can just add one, I'm just letting people know I've got sore itchy eyes. I'm okay. We've got a new cat in the house, and I have no say in the cat. Well, I do have a say, but 4 daughters and a wife who'd like a cat, so I'm a bit itchy. So do apologise if my eyes looked a bit red today.
I just thought it was snow blindness. Sorry.
No, I don't want that.
Right. Item 11, motions for which notice has previously been given. There are none tonight. Item 12, reception and reading of petitions. There are none. Documents for sealing. We have 6 documents for sealing tonight. Could I have a mover and a seconder for the documents to be sealed, please? Councillor Vincent and Councillor Prime. Can I have put that to the vote, please? Those in favour of allowing those two to sign off on these things? Thank you. That's carried.
It does mean that Councillor Prime has to drive over to Brighton and sign them.
I saw her in Myrtleford recently, so I'm sure that she likes to get out. Taking Miss Sophie out for a drive, it's good. There being no further business, I will declare the meeting closed at exactly 6:30. I believe we have another meeting to attend. Councillors, please, if you would check your emails.